seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the bus and they left the bus in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
This is the T.N.F, the night we hand over the keys of the bus to use. And on the T.N.F, Judge Kearney joins us as always. How are you doing, big man? You all right?
I'm doing very well, boys. Yourself, mate? How you doing?
Jamming, mate. Busy day at work today. A lot of travelling about. Left
always for you, mate. Always.
Well, aye. Left work
at 8, your boss.
Left for work at 8 o'clock this morning. I got in at 8 o'clock tonight. 2 hours travelling each way is just naked. Connor, you've joined us again. The man is on a roll. The walking cheeseburger engineer of that patter. Did you ever hear him say that?
No, mate, no.
You listened to that episode yet?
No, mate. A walking cheeseburger. I don't know why.
He described Morelos as a walking cheeseburger, and literally the whole bus just erupted. It was just the funniest thing ever. It was good patter, young man. Connor, how are you, mate? Good to have you back on.
I'm good, man. Don't worry for you boys. The Ferrari has pulled in at the station.
The Connor car. I love it. The Ferrari has he's been working on that all day. Anyway, all that good stuff. If you want to subscribe to the channel, like 3,528, I think it was before I came on. Already have. Do it now. Cost you F all. If you want to give a wee like, hit the like button now. Do it. Because there's 97 live on this bus already. It's going to be another mobbed double-decker Boise Bus episode. That's what we want to see. If you want to become a Boise Bus member, like Pam, like Alan Woods, like D-Mac, like Joseph McGonigal, like GP1888, like Scott Cameron, Stubbsy's Horse, San Fran Celtic, and our newest member, John Duncan, then feel free to do so. Bloody hell, so many now. Brilliant to have you all on. And obviously, the next time you're watching the bus, if you want to do a wee tasty treat, then just head over to piesports.com and use the code BUS1888 and you will get 12.5% off your pies. Anyway, that'll do. As I've said, right, so see, we've done quite a lot of shows since the game, and I felt a wee bit like, didn't want to start repeating myself on every show and go around the same conversations. If we do, it won't be on me this time. It's going to be because you guys have driven us there because tonight we are just doing straight into the forum, no messing around. Get your points in now in the comment section, and I will go round the houses tonight with the boys, and we will try and get through as many as we possibly can. It was brilliant last week when we did it. There were so many comments coming in, I couldn't even bring up them all. But yeah, that's going to be the plan tonight. There's no script. We're not setting the tone. You guys set it for us. And to kick off, we've got Legend of the Bus. Brown Warrior comes in. And we'll come straight to you, Judge Kearney, for your verdict. And it is Brown Warrior. He says, do you believe, as I do, that a Celtic treble this season would see some proper bear-on-bear action in the summer as they scream for big spending? Take it away, Judge Kearney.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I don't think they're very self-reflective at all. I don't think they see Celtic's dominance as dominance. I think they just see it as a flash in the pan. They're too arrogant to see anything other than short-term success for Celtic and long-term success for Rangers. I don't think they actually see a points gap or a gap in quality. They're very arrogant, boys. I think a treble for Celtic, they would just see it as it was just one of these seasons we just lost it on key moments, rather than the fact that Celtic have just been on it since the minute the season's kicked off. I mean, St Mirren aside, was just turned out to be a really fucking bizarre day for Celtic this season. I think Celtic probably got a shot in the arm through that game that they probably didn't expect and probably didn't need, to be honest with you, but they still got a wee lift for it, and we've all looked back since, and they might have struggled in certain games towards near the end of the season, but I think that's okay as long as we don't lose too many. But no, to be honest with you, I think the bear-on-bear action normally happens on the wake of a match, but see, as a fan base, that they're all that so far up their own arses that they all march to the same beat, you know what I mean? And they all just kind of like go for the same kind of narrative. And I mean, even the new, like say, the past week, no matter what forum you're getting a picture put up on, and Raskin was brilliant and Beale's tactics were perfect. There's no self-reflective, whereas most Celtic fans I know that after a defeat after that mob, but no matter where you're in the league, there's a lot of reflection on the result, you know what I mean? And you kind of, you take the good points and the bad points. You know that arrogant, you all look at one way, and I don't think a treble for Celtic will see that mob capitulate. They'll just see it as, wait till they get his next season. That's just the way they always go.
That's fair, Connor. Brown Warrior kind of backed up his point earlier. I seen it and then I missed it because I was trying to save other questions that are coming in. But he'd sort of said, you know, that if we do win the treble, it takes us to within one trophy of their world famous record, that whether it still exists or not is a different argument, and I'm not going to go down that road tonight. But within one trophy of it, do you think that gives a wee bit extra impetus for the summer for them? Do you think that could make them push a red button of sorts and splash the cash that they don't have, and to try and challenge the juggernaut that is Celtic?
I mean, yeah. I mean, like you said, I don't know what big red button there is they would push. I mean, I don't know what kind of resources they have. They've got, you know, the rats are leaving the sinking ship as we speak. So, you know, they're losing footballing directors and CEOs and all sorts. So I think that's kind of a sign of things to come. I think there's definitely something in the works behind the scenes here, and this is the one thing I will say, right, is that after just getting a defeat off your nearest rivals and 2 your senior members of the club leave after you've just only released your accounts and they're not looking too good, a more intelligent fan base would ask why that's happening. A more intelligent fan base would say, why is this happening? But they see it as a good thing. They see it as, oh, we're getting rid of these charlatans that have fucked us in the past and blah, blah, blah. But no, you'd have to ask, why is this happening? Is something really dodgy going on? Is Sevco version 2 coming around and down the pipeline very soon? So yeah, it's very weird, but they're kind of in this weird headspace that Celtic is sitting still right now. We're not. We're very much a moving organism that is evolving constantly. So, you know, when it comes to the summer, we're going to have Champions League money. We're going to have money from sales, add-ons from other transfers in other leagues, sell-on clauses. Lots of things, not to mention our tour of Japan, which will no doubt make a few quid. There's loads of things, and I know for a fact that maybe the Celtic board of old wouldn't, but I think under Ange, I think he's kind of got that. He's kind of got them on a little bit of a leash almost. That you will be spending the money to improve us and to help this club evolve and move in the right direction. So, they think in their mind, because the last couple of results have been a bit tight, that they're on par with us. It's absolute lunacy.
Well, it may well be that. We'll move on to some Celtic stuff, because we are a Celtic pod. There's loads of points coming in. I dare say we will dip our toes into talking about them later on as well, judging by the questions getting posted, Judge Kearney. But we're going to go more domestic affairs right now and look at our own. What is it? Ange says, don't look over the fence at someone else's garden or house or something. We're going to look at our own house, our own big house, you could say. Now, which 5 players are unsellable at the moment, and to strengthen the squad, it'd be around them, Stevie Kenny asks. And cheers for jumping on the bus, Stevie. Mark, it's a question that I think a lot of people will be asking of this summer, and this will always be the debate, where you don't want to enter into territory where you're dissing players for the sake of it, or players that have had a brilliant contribution. We've always been pretty consistent, I would say, that doesn't mean you can't improve on them just because they've had a brilliant season. I think we've been pretty consistent with that sort of mindset. Now, the question, though, we've got to answer it, because Stevie's putting it to us. So I'll put you on the spot, Judge Kearney. Who's the 5 indispensable players at Celtic right now that, obviously, we're not going to make 11 wholesale changes to the first team, even if we had 500 million. So who would it be, the 5 that make up the nucleus of that Celtic team to improve again next year, that you would build your team around?
Well, to be honest with you, if I have to name 5, it's probably more than I think that we need, to be quite honest with you. I don't think we can play the same kind of football without Carter Vickers at the back. I think Carter Vickers leaves that defence, and all of a sudden it becomes very, very shaky. Financial-wise, I don't think you can replace Alistair Johnson. And within our pay bracket, I think you'd have to get really lucky to get a player of his calibre for under 10 million, to be honest with you. So that's one player that, if you actually looked at the reality of it, I don't think you can replace him. Carter Vickers, as I say, I don't think he's going to go somewhere anyway, but he's one that we just can't afford to go, boys, so we just can't. Callum McGregor, I don't think you can replace. He's not going to go anyway, but what he gives the team, I don't think you can actually buy that. You'd have to buy somebody who'd maybe at the very peak of their powers within our pay bracket, and that's not going to happen either. I would love to see go, but we're all kind of, he's going to go this summer, probably. The chances are he's going to go, but I wouldn't put him in that bracket where he's unsellable, or somebody that we can't afford to leave. He's come in, he's been fantastic since the minute he's been here, but he's been here for about 14 months, boys. So, he's been part of this juggernaut, and he's been great for the juggernaut. And by God, we notice when he's missing. I think the Celtic don't. They're not as fluid in midfield, and they're not as fast moving. And up top is Kyogo, would probably be the one that I would say that you just can't afford to sell. But again, I think his age might play on our part, that we've got him in his late 20s, and unless you get some team in England that are really want to pay 10, 12, 13 million for him, and just say, look, we're not going to get a sell-on value, but if we get 10 goals out of him in the Premier League and we don't get relegated because of him, it's worth the money. You know what I mean? It's that's the reality of it. But I think there's no many players, I think, in that team. I think the squad's set up, but I've said before, on grass and on paper is 2 different things. On paper, we've got a brilliant first and second string team. On grass, it's just no. I mean, replacing Turnbull, it's just things like that. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. But I think the players are just undrappable for Celtic. The guys that we just do not tick the same. I don't think you can lose. It's probably only 2 players I say that Celtic need, and that is Cameron Carter-Vickers, because take him out of that defence and you are looking pretty average. Callum McGregor, because he's a long-term player. Take him out of that role that he does, that hybrid role that he does, an 8 and a 6, and then that team doesn't work the same. The rest can kind of be interchanged, worked on, replaced, improved, and you take your chances with that, I think.
That's fair. That's fair. Connor, give me your 5 Celtic undroppables or unsellables, as Stevie's saying.
They're kind of the same. I'd say Johnson definitely, Carter Vickers, Hatate. I'd say Kyogo and Jota. I don't really look at
McGregor
McGregor.
not in those? No.
This let me explain.
All
I
right,
don't
all
really,
right.
I don't really see McGregor. This. Let me explain this one because it's going to sound really bad when I say it. But I don't see McGregor as a sellable asset, mostly due to his age, and because he's committed his future to Celtic. I feel like he's just off the board entirely of a selling him on and him going anywhere else. I feel like he's Celtic captain now. He's captain in the club to trophies and league titles. I think he's just here for the long haul. I think he's here until he retires, basically. So, aye, with Johnson, obviously, I've raved about him that much past couple of shows. He's amazing. I love the guy. Brilliant. Carter Vickers is just an absolute rock at the back. We would not be where we are without him. He's absolutely solid. Best defender this league seen since Virgil van Dijk. Hatate's one of the brightest sparks in, a midfield I've seen in this league, and maybe even, for a long time. He's the best midfielder since, Lubo and stuff like that. Kyogo, obviously, goal machine. I don't really think he'll be off anytime soon due to his age, which is kind of on our side. And obviously, Jota's one of the best wingers this league seen. He's silky in this, his ability on the ball, his goal scoring contributions, his ability, his pass and everything. So, yeah, I feel like those 5 players, if you were to take that out, even with McGregor, I think that the Celtic side does not look the same at all.
No, I think that's fair as well. I mean, I just feel like there's the conversation's a positive one that Stevie's suggesting. Do you know what I mean? He's looking at this like and going, do you know what? We've now got from where we were to where we are now. We've now got. I think you would have a debate out of maybe 7 of them. Everyone could maybe bicker over like who their top 5, maybe about 7 of them are. And I think that shows the squad right now is going to be very much about, I wouldn't call it finishing touches. I think you said it the other day, Matt. The squad's never finished. There's no such thing as you get it all done and that's it. We're just then letting see how it pans out. But in terms of the foundations that the squad got, I think we've got a far larger group now of players that you could hang your hat on, that you would say were first team, first names on the team sheet sort of thing, that are real quality. And I think that's a good sign to me. In fact, I look back at some of the sides that we've seen that have actually done okay. I mean, you look at Stratton's team, for example. I don't think yet they had 7 up to 7 players that you would go, well, you'd maybe say they were unsellable, but that would be because what was around them was really a big drop off. I don't think, I think the quality of the 5 unsellables that Stevie's wanting us to speculate on, I think that quality level's definitely improved in the last 2 years for what we've seen before. So good question, Stevie. We'll keep it domestic. In comes, hope I'm going to pronounce this right, Emperine Vibrations. Hope that's right. I hope it's not controversial. I don't know what that means. He's saying, with our scouting network so far reaching now, is there any current Scottish players around that you think could make an impact at the Hoops under Ange? For me, domestically, I think you'd be struggling with that, Mark. I think we'd be toiling to see anyone in the SPFL. It's getting described as arguably the worst domestic top flight in years right now in terms of the quality of football, in terms of the standards, in terms of Scottish players floating around there. I do go back to it. I think, when you see the successes that the likes of Hickey's had since he went to Serie A, then he went to Brentford for 8-figure sum. You look at Lewis Ferguson, who I think's pulled up trees over there, it turns out, after a slow start at Bologna, and by all accounts he's been scouted by Juventus no less in that time. Now, if Juventus are looking at players like that, then naturally you would think they'd have been able to have made an impact. In terms of right now, I think there's the only Scottish players vibrations that we could be looking at would be ones that have maybe already went down south. That would be it. The only thing I would say as well, it's very easy to always underestimate everyone that's in the league. I'm always pleasantly surprised how well certain players I thought were maybe bang average, go on and do it down south, which is meant to be, you know, the all-encompassing mecca of football, Mark. You know what I mean? I mean, Scott McKenna plays in the English Premier League. He strolled the Championship for Nottingham Forest. You look at, apparently Porteous has been doing brilliant at Watford, for example. I mean, you have seen guys go down there. I remember Ross McCormack going down there and he cost like £12 million and he was £14 million, scored goals for fun in the English Championship, albeit maybe not the Premier League. But it does show you that sometimes when players leave our top flight that we've maybe never held in that higher regard, sometimes you go see them in a different environment, one probably of a higher standard, let's be real, and they actually seem to kind of pleasantly surprise you. Is there any, though, that are catching your eye domestically right now that you would think, we've got a live one there, you know, we should be having a wee look at him?
No, I think they're fucking shite. I'm being totally honest with you, mate. I think somebody, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I think it's probably the worst Premier League I've ever seen in Scotland, boys. And I'm not just, and I mean, thinking back to when you mentioned it the other day, the Celtic finishing second, about 2 or 3 times during 9 in a row. There was good Motherwell teams, good Hearts teams, Kilmarnock teams, even when they come up, and teams that could play some good football. Motherwell got a couple of players that are on the end of their careers that end up being pretty well for them, and just there was pretty good teams cutting about Scotland back then, and nobody could compete with Rangers. But the new it's awful, mate. It's bad. I mean, I'm actually praising teams now for actually trying, and that's just showing you how bad it is. The thing about the Scottish players that go down south, you mentioned it, they're playing way higher, better standard of players, but they're also playing in a different style of league. They're playing against teams that are kind of mostly like for like. It's not a duopoly up here. It's just 2 teams versus everybody else. You know what I mean? And if you go right, okay, I mean, what chance if we get 1 point a season out of the 4 matches against them, we'll sell a DVD. So like that in England, I think they're playing each other, and maybe 10 games out of 15, they've got a chance of winning them in every division. You know what I mean? Barring the big league, obviously. So these players can I mean, we've seen guys like who was that guy for Aberdeen that was born with grey hair? He played for about 40 years, but I remember him ended up being the captain. He played well for Cardiff in England. Up here, I don't think he was a great player up here for Aberdeen. I don't think he was at all, but he was fucking classy for them down there, and with guys like Ross Wallace couldn't make it at Celtic, and a lot of players play better in England than they do in Scotland because they've got a better, higher standard of coaching, higher standard of players, and also each team is kind of more evenly balanced, and you're not playing against guys who would rather break your leg than score a classy goal. It's a different kettle of fish down there. But for me, I think we bought the very best player that's maybe played against Celtic in the last maybe 6-7 years, and that's mentioned on screen now, David Turnbull, and he's nowhere near Celtic standard in my opinion. The only Scottish player I'd buy just now, and I'm being genuine with this, that would improve Celtic's team, I think would be Kieran Tierney. I don't think the captain for Scotland, I can't remember his name now, I think he's touched it. He's not going to improve that midfield for Celtic.
John McGinn?
Aye, bro, he would improve the midfield.
I would think he would.
Well, that's up to you, Connor, but I don't think he would, and I don't think Andy Robertson would either, because we've already got 1 left back that can't defend. We don't need 2. You know what I mean? Greg Taylor's was fine for me. I think a Kieran Tierney that can do both would be perfect for us. Greg Taylor can do both, but
Mark,
an upgrade.
We've spoke about players you could always upgrade. You don't think Andy Robertson would be an upgrade on Greg
No,
Taylor?
I'm not saying an upgrade on Greg Taylor, but one thing about that boy is, boys, I don't care what anybody says. The games I've seen him as, he is not an exceptional defender. He would get caught out. Can you imagine him at Celtic playing with Celtic's calibre player, playing in the Champions League with 50 yards of space behind him? He could caught out every single game. The same way Juranovic did. That level of all discipline when it comes to his positional strengths, and his positional strengths aren't great. Even the Liverpool fans will tell you that. I mean, anytime you see I say the exact same thing under the COVID season. If you watch the Liverpool goals that they concede, he'll be in the picture somewhere. He'll be in the camera shot of that goal. You know what I mean? And
no criticise Trent more than Robertson for his defending ability.
I don't know who that guy is, mate, to be quite honest with you. I want to see very
Andy
much.
Robertson won a Champions League with Liverpool. He couldn't be that bad.
Well, so did Bupa Diop. So did about 25 other players that's played for like teams like Liverpool and Red Star Brigade, the rest of it. But Connor, it doesn't mean you're a class act just because you're part of a sensational squad, mate. I don't think it's just a case of if you won a trophy. I mean, Scott Allen's got about 8 titles for Celtic. Doesn't mean he was fantastic, does it?
I mean, not necessarily.
I don't think when you get asked the question, Colin, you can say the players that you think would improve, but I don't think for a minute that John McGinn would come in and improve. Is he better than Hatate? No chance, not a chance. Hatate is as good as anybody that's played for Celtic in the last 16, 17 years, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
No, that's fair enough. On you go, Connor. Take it away, mate.
I mean, I agree with Mark massively on the fact that the domestic league, the SPFL this season has been absolutely shambolic. You look at the teams that should be top 5, like Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen. They've all had shocking seasons. Hibs and Hearts have lost, I think, the last 4 or 5 games each, and they're playing each other. So, and one's just sacked their manager, and the other's manager looks like he wants to be a fucking extra in a Guy Ritchie movie. But I wouldn't take anybody for this league right now. I would maybe take players who aren't Scottish from other teams. Like, I don't know about maybe that Duke would maybe worth a wee punt. Don't think he'd like play very much, but maybe be a decent backup. But no, the only player I knew I would take maybe would be Tierney for left back. I think he'd come back, obviously be welcome with open arms, and he would come back and he'd be excellent, but you just have to watch him with injuries, obviously. But you look at it across the leagues, McTominay at Man U, would he be better than, Hatate? Could we maybe take O'Reilly's spot? I don't know, but pay the wages for him. Picky at Brentford. I mean, I don't watch him in the Brentford games, unsurprisingly, but when I've seen him for Scotland, I've been very, very impressed. I think he's a really good player. But he's obviously another one that got away. He was in the academy, indeed not good enough, and then obviously he went on to become a bit of a baller. But no, it's really difficult to say because we have that homegrown quota that you need to fill for the Champions League and stuff, and then you look around and you're like, there's nobody you really take a punt on, and then players like Turnbull and stuff may want to leave, and McCarthy, so those spots become smaller and dwindling by the second if they were to leave. So I think it's a very hard balancing act to get, because just looking at the league, it's absolute dross. It's terrible. That's the worst thing in the years.
We'll move on. So domestically, anyway, I think we're all in agreement. There's going to be no one for the SPFL on Celtic's radar this summer. As for Scottish players, I think we've entered fantasy land with the fees and all that would be involved for some. And I think the more realistic ones, I think that the only one I think that would be affordable for Celtic would cause a storm. Whether he'd be any good or not, because he's not really done it at club level, would be Gilmore. I think you could probably afford to get him, but again, whether he would actually make that impact, I don't know. I think that could be a Scott Allen Mark II as well, to be perfectly honest with you, if he joins Celtic. Sticking with the Celtic, because there is loads of points that I've saved, by the way, so thanks so much for all the comments that have came in. If I've missed any, I apologise. I'm trying to keep up with Mark's comments, Connor's comments, and fucking a joke of an amount of live comments coming in. Keep them coming though, it's brilliant. I love it. It's just trying to keep up with it, it's difficult. Right, okay. Next up though that I've saved would be Stubbsy's horse. And he says, are the commission, because I'm not allowed to say the panel, slightly worried that we have not been at our best the last few games, especially with the Scottish Cup and the treble on the rise? And I'll come to you first this time, Connor. We'll go first ways this time. Connor, I don't think that Celtic have been great for the last 4 or 5 games. I don't think it was a big shock, the performance that we actually seen at the weekend there, when you actually consider the form we went into the game with. But notwithstanding that, I think Ange's teams are known over his managerial career. I think he spoke about it openly. I think it was in his book. He had said, by the end of the season, that's where he wants to see them at their absolute best, when they'll start motoring on. these big games will be obviously the test of that, Connor. Are you concerned at all by the form, or do you think it's just been a wee bit of a rough patch? So, let's be honest, we've came out completely unscathed. We've won every single game in front of us during supposed off form period.
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't think there's necessarily much to worry about. Usually under Ange, if we go through a wee bit of a blip, not necessarily a dry spell because we just keep winning, but last season there was a couple of times we were like, oh, we're maybe scraping by, or we're not looking too great our last couple of games. It doesn't tend to last very long. They usually, if we're maybe only beat a team like by a 2-goal margin, which is kind of seen as a bit of a disaster now for Celtic if you're not pumping teams 6 or 7-0 every week. They tend to come back and put in a really good shift and really good performance. And luckily we've got one right in the corner against Kilmarnock on Sunday, and I know they did okay against us in the semi-final, but they've done an absolute number on them at Rugby Park earlier in the season. So yeah, I don't think there's much to worry about. I feel like there's only so long this Celtic team can kind of go through the motions before they really click back into gear again. And I'm just hoping that it's in these next few weeks where we're, getting into the end zone of the league and we can just start steamrolling over teams, and that includes the ugly sisters here in Govan.
Mark, it's been weird because I think they've even kept up over the last 6 games the 3 goals a game average. Do you know what I mean? Like scoring 3 goals a game. But we can't deny, your eyes don't lie. I mean, Celtic have not been playing at the same level that we've seen in various spells this season and consistent spells. Have you got any concerns going into what is at the end of the day, the nitty gritty now? The league is still to be won. We know it's in the bag, right? We get all that. But it's still there to be won. You've got to go to Rugby Park with the right attitude and the right level of performance to make sure you come away with the 3 points. You've got to make sure for that Scottish Cup semi-final that your level of performance is, in my opinion, raised from what we've seen so far. San Fran Celtic comes on, great to have you on the bus as always, and he's saying, we've never been pushed in those games. We've been first gear. I don't think first gear will be enough at Hampden, Matt.
Oh no, definitely. I mean, I don't think they're getting closer to us in terms of their squad depth or their first 11. To be quite honest with you, I think Celtic are still that far out front just now, and I don't think I'm never one of these guys that say like a bad result's never going to happen to Celtic. I mean, some people are quite they can't see a bad result coming. Well, I've been watching Celtic for 30 years, and when is a bad result coming? To be quite honest with you, you expect to beat every team you play. I mean, if we play against Kilmarnock, you think you're going to beat them 5-0, you know what I mean? It doesn't. You don't expect to get beat. So each game gets the same, its own tricky parts, and you've got to win it. To be quite honest with you, we've been playing pretty poor or even low compared to our own standards, but our standards are pretty high. I mean, our standards are almost like we're swashbuckling. A lot of times we're playing at fucking 90 mile an hour. I think a lot. I'm not just saying this because I've criticised the likes of O'Reilly, etc. I think a lot is to do with the fact that Moy and Hattati were at the team at the one time. That's 2 big cogs in that wheel, you know what I mean? And an important part of your striking force is getting the ball as quick as possible to the wingers and creating havoc, and I don't think that there was a constance that when our game started to slow down in midfield, teams were getting closer to us and we're finding it hard to get the ball out to Maida and Kyogo and Jota and all the rest of it. That's not a constance, that's just a fact of the matter. So I'm not worried as such, but I do think last Saturday there, I must admit, I mean, it could have been free each, whatever. I mean, people forgetting that we had a chance at the last minute. I mean, Bernabeu was going through 1-1. We could have finished that game off pretty easily in the end up, but we could have drew it as well. The gap on Saturday wasn't massive, but we deserved to win. But you can't play it that at Hampden because one thing's for sure. I mean, the referee in charge, we all know, probably Don Robertson or something like that. I mean, he's seen this referee getting death threats, so we're going to have 13, 14 men up against us at Hampden, so we better beat our best. But the good thing about Ange is he sets his team up and he sets them up to play against the rules, not the rules, but the made-up rules and the opposition. But my worry is, boys, is we're now months and months and months into this VAR, and we've still got fucking Carter Vickers tugging at people, still got Alistair Johnson tugging at people, still got Starfelt trying to do his best to give away penalties every week. And I don't think it's just a Celtic problem, but I'm just concerned with Celtic. I think Celtic, with all these months down the line, we should be learning for these mistakes. You know what I mean? We should be at a stage where we're no grabbing guys as much. We're maybe fighting that half a second. But I know about the part in front of 60,000 fans. I don't know what it's like, but I just think we should be. But David the Butcher messaged me. I said that he agrees with all my points and I'm having a great show. So thanks, David, mate. I appreciate your support, mate. I really appreciate that, man.
Someone's got to. Anyway, moving on, right? We've got another wee interest. Let's wee bit of a curveball now. Connor, obviously the EPL announced today. Now, I just tweeted it saying, wow, when I seen it, because I didn't expect that, because I thought the clubs down there would be held to some sort of ransom by the sponsorship deals. Now, don't get me wrong, it maybe highlights just how ridiculous the TV revenue they're making and all their other ventures make. That the EPL clubs have now basically announced voluntary, as a combined sort of 20 clubs thing, they've put it forward that they no longer want betting companies on the front of their jerseys. Now, instantly, I read that and just thought, wow, no more betting companies sponsoring EPL clubs. But of course, some clever comments came in below it. All I put was wow, by the way, because I was surprised at it. And it was a lot of comments, though, I picked up on the fact that says no mention of shirt sleeves, because I think there are a lot of those sort of sponsors down south. A lot of them have like different sponsors in their sleeves and all that. So there's nothing about that or sponsor boards and things. So it's not maybe a complete blackout of betting companies, Connor. But obviously it touches a wee bit close to home. Celtic are sponsored by Daffabet and have been sponsored by them for, I think we must be talking about 7 years now. Must be something like that. Long time. 2016? That would been the first year under Brendan. 2016, 17, that's what, 7-8 years now. The difference, Charles Smith is the one that's raising the point. He's saying, can you see Celtic changing the shirt sponsorship like the English teams? I just don't think Celtic can afford, unfortunately, and I do think there's a moral argument, and I do take that on board, and I bow to a lot of fans' greater knowledge of, you know, the spirit of Celtic and things like that, and I do accept that. But from a business point of view, when I look at it, I can't help but feel, Connor, Celtic are still at the same time very much compromised by who's offering the dollars, who's offering the biggest sponsorship revenue. Sadly, your morals and your principles sometimes need to be parked. Not completely. I think Celtic, when they don't wear the Daffabet jersey, for example, have the Celtic FC Foundation as a sponsor, which I think shows they've not completely lost all sight of what they're all about as a club. But it's very difficult to envisage anytime soon, Connor, Celtic being in a position they can pick and choose who their main sponsor is going to be. I think the brand that comes in with the biggest bucks wins the day, unfortunately. And it just highlights to me that if EPL clubs can afford to do that, that their revenue streams from elsewhere are just so great that it puts them in that comfortable and very fortunate position. They can take these sort of virtue signal and moral high ground sort of positions that they do.
Money talks, unfortunately. And, you know, the kind of sponsorships and that we get are very much a stranglehold on the Scottish game, because we don't get much of it from other sources. So you have to kind of take it where you can get it. Obviously, a club like Arsenal or Man City could be like, well, obviously, if they had a betting sponsor in front and say, no, we're not taking them anymore. Who wants to sponsor, to get about 10 million companies firing and stuff to see if they can sponsor them. So that's no skin off their back during the Premier League, because the money there are just ridiculous for what they get. You know, they could be getting 10 million for just a tiny wee fucking logo on like the bottom of their sock. It doesn't even see. Do you know what I mean? So it's crazy down there. But with regards to us, it's a nice sentiment and all that, and it would be nice if, you know, it maybe trickled up here, but I don't know who would come in and, you know, sponsor us, because the gambling companies do have a lot of dough to fling around and provide us. So, but I'm more look at it in the aesthetic way. I think Alphabet's one of the most minging looking sponsors we've had in years. You know, long gone are the days of you having the NTL or the Carling or Magners and that, which, you know, really shake the kit. And whether you agree with alcohol sponsors or not, I feel like they looked the part and they were kind of, you know, iconic in their way. But it's a bit of a sticky situation because the Premier League is kind of this big water tank and everything just dripping down at the other leagues, and they're just slipping up what they can get, and everything trickles down. So if that is what happens, then it could affect us and it could affect other leagues as well. I think we'll just have to wait and see.
It's interesting. I think, Connor, it'd be really funny though if either of the clubs have been watching the bus this week and Celtic just announced a multi-million-pound deal with McDonald's. Do you know what I mean? And then Rangers were sponsored by Wimpy. Do you know what I mean? Just seeing Morelos in a Wimpy top, you know what I mean? The walking cheeseburger. That'd be pretty funny. Mark, where do you stand on that sort of thing? I mean, it's very, very nice that the English clubs are in that position. They can do that, and what a fortunate position they find themselves. Would you say that Celtic right now have to sort of bow to the paymasters on this one, or are they in a position now, such as the greater financial strength that they've got, where they could turn around and go, do you know what? Let's maybe try and pick and choose a wee bit more with the sponsors and try and stay on brand.
I find it fucking hysterical that I don't know if he's still talking. Is he still talking? He's froze.
I froze. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll just finish off I find it fucking hysterical that a league that's charging £3,000 for a season ticket all of a sudden grew an ethical bone in their body. I mean, there's 2 or 3 owners in that country, in that league, that are for Dubai and these places that are Qatar, sorry, these places that have got zero moral compass at all about them, you know what I mean? And some of the human rights things that happen in these countries is just abhorrent, you know what I mean? But we have to believe that it's all right for that to be happening, but you can't have Ladbrokes on top of your jumper or whatever. It's just a ridiculous thing. I mean, with the William Hull Scottish Cup and tenants and all the rest of it. So I don't really see where the push is for Celtic to even consider doing that road, or Scottish football. I mean, I don't know if Scottish football can pick and choose what sponsors we get. I think sometimes they're lucky to get a decent offer sometimes. Like even we've still not even got a sponsor for the Scottish Cup now. I mean, we'd one, it's like a League Cup this season changed sponsor halfway through because the company get punted. That is how much they actually focus too much on these things. But I don't really see, I mean, as I said to you, they've got clubs doing there paying players $300,000 a week in cities like Manchester where there's poverty left, right and centre. Liverpool where the stadium sits on a scheme that you wouldn't even let a cat live in, you know what I mean? And you say to yourself, hang on a minute here, we're supposedly you'll get a moral compass, you'll get billionaire owners making money for in these states that are like persecuting and executing women for wearing skirts, and men that are homosexual and all the rest of it. Away he's going. I mean, you've not got a moral compass. What you might just find is, you just mentioned it, Boise, they probably just found a loophole where they can get 2 sponsors rather than 1. So they can have Coca-Cola at the front and then get 2 sponsors up there. What you might find happening is, I guess you watch the football abroad and they used to see 5, 6 sponsors on each shirt and on the sleeves and at the back. You probably find the EPL doing that very soon. I don't think for a minute they care about. I mean, gambling's long since ruined people's lives, the lower classes. I don't think it's going to make a difference that somebody wearing a Ladbrokes or the Alphabet jumper is going to T-shirt that's going to make somebody go out and start turning into a gambling addict. I really don't think it's any correlations at all. I think it's just an exercise to have a wee bit of PR to make them think that they're human, but they're not human. They're just fat, greedy pigs who want as much money as possible, and the working man is not going to be able to afford to watch it very long. So don't try and take away stupid things like alcohol or gambling sponsorship just because you want to come across as morally better than the rest is, because you know what? They've been doing it in France for 20 and 30 years, and you know what? There's a lot. Look at PSG. Look at the people who own them. What moral compass have they got when they're breaking rules left, right, and centre to make their team be the very best in the league. That happened in Scotland. Look what happened to the team, and we all despise them for it. No, not for me, mate. I think it's a bit. I think they need to put the mirror on themselves before they start hunting it with that shit.
I see that point. I really do. I mean, like I said, I did when I was saying with the initial point, I said a bit of virtue signalling. You can't help but feel it's struck sort of tied in with a wee bit of that. And I do think from a Celtic point of view, I get both sides of the argument. I can't deny that. But from my point of view, if I'm honest, I'm just looking at it from the business, and I'm just going,
exactly, mate. It's where the money is. Who should decide? And I always said to you before about restriction of trade. Who walks into the food sector and tells the food sector that they can't sell I don't know, Smirnoff vodka just now because it's promoting a Russian brand? Who's doing that in the food sector? Who's walking into even your industry, boys, and telling you what products you can push on to customers just because it might not be. I mean, you look at an Apple product, very dubious, their history with a lot of things. Come on.
No, I get you, mate.
Yourself here, mate. Football just seems to be in a law of its own, where it's government and legislation seems to be different for football, especially in Scotland, as we know, during COVID, etc. But it just seems to be out on its own, where it's an easy target. I mean, don't forget, in Scotland, like I speak for England, I mean, if you're a travelling football fan, you can be stopped, searched and seized without given reason, you know what I mean? You can have your alcohol taken off you if it's in the boot of a car. If you're travelling to a Celtic match in fucking tap of Scotland and you've got 10 cans of lager in your boot, they can confiscate your lagers off you, but they're not opened in a carrier bag. You go on a supporters bus policy and they can open up the boot of the supporters bus and take away all the unopened alcohol, no matter what reason the driver gives for it. That doesn't happen in any other walk of life, any other sector. I think football is just kind of used as a political statement. I mean, look at the 80s and all the troubles in England with football hooligans, and that's not happened for 30, 40 years, but I think that just tarnished the wider public's view on football in general, and any political clout people can, like certain politicians can get by introducing legislation or giving tax relief on people who avoid certain things, like alcohol sponsorship. It's just ridiculous, mate. I think we need to move on to it all and just, I mean, football in Scotland alone generates about £500 million of revenue to a country that struggles with sporting, any sporting academics, you know what I mean? And you say, well, why you want to put a red flag over this money-making machine and this thing that keeps the country going during COVID? There's only happiness a lot of his head, but it was just used as a way of poking a stick at people who were trying to get a wee bit of pleasure out of life at the time, and it will always be seen as something that some folks just find distasteful, and I'm not a big fan of that at all, mate.
No, I think that's absolutely fair. Obviously, Ian McIntosh saying, remember when tobacco companies were on the big sports sponsorships? It seems unthinkable now. What about one of my vapes? Could get one of them in the fridge.
There you go.
Anyway, back to the football. That was that debate opened up quite a bit there. I can see the live chat's pretty lively in response to that. And yes, I respect all your views on it. And I know it could be touchy subjects for some people when it comes to addiction and things like that. No one's brushing over that. We're just simply looking at it from the business point of view. But I take on board. People expect more from Celtic sometimes from an emotional standpoint and an historical one. And I get that as well. We'll move on. Anyway, now having a wee look at the future a wee bit. Connor, I want your take on this since you're in an AC Milan jersey. AJSC Tech comes in, a regular on the bus. Good to have you, big man. And he's saying, do you boys see the 8 game with 8 different opponents in the 2024 New Champions League being a bit of a game changer for Celtic in terms of more Euro games and more cash? I'll also add a wee bit to that. And will Celtic be more competitive in that format as well, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already kind of discussed this. You know, I think it's maybe a good step forward. Obviously, we have to wait until all the final details and that are ironed out and see kind of how it works when it's in full flow. But just going by what the description is so far, it definitely could, you know, seriously were to Celtic's benefit for being more competitive in Europe, because when you're put in such a small group with these European juggernauts like your Bayern Munich's, your Man City's, your Barcelona's or Real Madrid's and that, and you only get 2 games apiece, and especially now, with what we've come to expect with Celtic in Europe, it's you kind of everybody kind of just writes off Europe as soon as the group's drawn now. It's kind of like, oh well, maybe we can get Europa League or whatever. There's no, I don't think, any backbone now when it comes to the Celtic support with competing in Europe. It's very much like, oh, we want to make a good atmosphere for the cameras and for teams to get say something nice about our stadium and that, rather than have them come here and beating them at Celtic Park and making it a cauldron, making it an atmosphere anymore like what it used to be. See, that's the thing where people start sharing things. I think, who was it, a Bayern Munich player, was it Alphonso Davies or somebody, put I was saying something good about Celtic Park the other day. I'm like, why are you even fucking tweeting that? That's got no bearing on what we're doing right now, with regards to what we're doing in the league and what we're doing, in Europe and that. Just show that you can put out wee quotes in that with green and white font saying, oh, I like our stadium, they have a really nice time in that, and they love the atmosphere. I don't want them to love the atmosphere anymore, these teams. I want them to come here and be shit for to play Celtic and to give them a good go. And with this new system, we can, have more chances to get more success, get more experience, get more cash to then get more transfers in, better players, and just continuously evolve. So yeah, I do see it as something that can, be very beneficial for Celtic in the future, but obviously we need to wait for that all to happen until that kind of comes into fruition. But for now, hypothetically, yeah, I'd say it definitely looks like a good way to go.
Definitely gives us more of a chance, Mark. And I know the chances are slim of ever making big dents in this tournament, but it is a yardstick that I think managers of Celtic are still measured against. Do you know what I mean? Regardless, and nobody expects you to go to Celtic and win the Champions League, but make an impression on it. It raises the whole profile of the club, certainly the stock of whoever's in the dugout at the time. And I'm sure he's got an eye very much on trying to make an impact on it. For Celtic first and foremost, but I'm sure he's acutely aware of brand Ange as well. And he'll know that if we make some sort of inroads in the Champions League, his stock rises. I do feel like the 8 games is good for us in terms of a financial viewpoint, and I think it will give us a chance of being a wee bit more competitive as well. We just need to wait and see, though.
I think it'll actually make the gap between Celtic and the rest of the league all that bigger, because the financial benefits is just going to be even more multiplied, you know what I mean? But what I will say is, there's actually another way to look at it. I think the gap between Celtic and the better teams, will get bigger, because you're going to have teams going to have 8 games now to get their act together, rather than teams maybe not getting up to a gallop, like maybe the odd time that an AC Milan or something won't qualify and they'll finish third behind a Red Bull Leipzig. They're going to have 8 games to correct their wrongs in the first couple of games, so that you look at that way, boys, so they're going to have many a chance to get their act together, and maybe I think you will see a lot more meaningless games towards the end of the campaigns, in terms of you may have the bottom 3 teams playing each other or whatever, and then maybe not getting to play for it. But it's still a lot of money for teams like Celtic. But I think if you've got a team that starts off pretty bad, maybe get a 1 win out of their first 3 games, and they're maybe second seeds in that group, the chances are they're going to get put out just now under this setup. But see, if they've got 8 games, gives them 2 more games to get their act together. And what you might see is less shocks in terms of who's qualifying for the next round and who's no. You know what I mean? Because I think it's been voted on by the big clubs. You know what I mean? And it's been viewed on by the big clubs and how it's going to be beneficial to them, not just financially, but they'll be looking at the chances of them maybe losing out. You know what I mean? If you've got a team that's, as I say, they've started off pretty bad in that Champions League, all you got to do is lose your first 2 matches and you're in serious trouble. But if you've been lucky and be away against the top seed, and then in the second game just not turn up, and then you're fucked. You know what I mean? But that's just keys up. Just keys. I think I know it sounds the typical Mark thing to say, but I think it's going to make the job harder for teams like Celtic, because we're going to have to win at least half our games
Yep.
to get
And that
through to
then
the
means
next round.
4, not 3. I know, I get that.
And
I
then
get that.
even at that, boys, if it's the top 4 going through or whatever, if you're going to have maybe 2 pot 3 teams, 2 pot 4 teams, they're still a good standard, mate. You know what I mean? So rather than you having to maybe get like the group we had this season, I was saying to myself, if Celtic can get 4 points at home and then get a victory away, we're qualifying. That's what I had in my head, because I thought the other teams are going to take points off each other. But see, now you've got to say to yourself, we're going to be at least pick up points in 5 games now to qualify. And that's a hard act for a team like Celtic. And
That's
I
true.
think the financial benefits, it's like just getting somebody in the rope, but making the rope longer. It's still the same thing, mate. You know what I mean? It's just, that's just the way I can describe it, mate. But the good thing for Celtic is, the good thing for Celtic is, and I think probably the shitty thing if you're a Scottish football fan is, I don't think they've got a chance in as it is. I mean, what chance has a Hearts got, for talk's sake? But if Celtic or Rangers earnings go from £40 million to 55, that's just, I know the gap's already there, I know that, but it's just going to widen the gap between us and the rest in terms of that. But I think as well it'll widen the gap between the difficulty level for us to get to the next round than what it is already. Does that make sense to you?
No, it does. I agree with what you're saying there, Mal. I think I've not really looked at that. I always just thought, do you know what, there is more of a chance. But you're right. Obviously, any financial benefit to Celtic doesn't mean the other clubs aren't gaining more as well, because they're playing 2 extra games, and the more teams you've got to play, the more games you've got to win to actually make a dent in it. They're all fair points that you make, pal. They are. I think from maybe just a football fan point of view, I'm just going, I bring on 8 games instead of 6 in the Champions League.
I'm up for that and all, mate. I'm up for that and all. Because I remember saying to you pre-season, we were talking about signing players, and you're like, does the Champions League give you that boost to say to a player, all right, we've got... And I was saying to you boys, how much does 6 games sway a player's opinion? But if you can say, look, it's 8 games, all of a sudden you can say, look, a quarter of your season is going to be against a very high level opposition. That changes the landscape a wee bit, you know what I mean? And I know it's only a couple of games, but if you put it to them that way, I think even just qualifying for the Champions League elevates you in every possible way, sponsorship and all the rest of it. But it's just another way of looking at it. It's not necessarily what is going to happen, but I think the positive spin on it is what you opened up with. It's going to give me that chance. But I think the realism in the cloud settles is it's probably going to be a wee teens a bit more difficulty, because the better teams are going to have a chance to even. Because I remember, put it this way, boys, the reason why I think Celtic and Rangers constantly get to the finals of Scottish Cups, and it's because we're the better teams and they come in and they own the tournament. But see, in England, there used to be a 2-legged system. And that, for me, that was geared because, see, if Luton Town managed to get a 2-1 victory against a second-string Arsenal, see, the second round, the FA know that the second round Arsenal are going to win 4-1. You know what I mean? And you go to yourself, it's to make the end product more exciting. We had Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City last 4. They don't want an MK Dons getting to the last 4. You know what I'm talking about? And it's the same kind of thing with us, I think.
No, I think I totally take that on board as well. I really do. Right, we're going to do a quick fire before we go. We've got 4 more points that I've saved. I just want very short and sweet answers off you, lads. We're just going to make this pretty quick fire. A yes or a no, a quick why, and then on to the next one. Right, we game? Let's do it. Right, okay, first one. Joseph McGonigal comes in. Do the panel think Ross Wilson leaving is the beginning of a part 2?
Yes.
Why?
I thought you wanted short and sweet.
No, I said a short. I said a yes and then a why. Just a sentence.
Aye, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I think there's the Rats are leaving a sinking ship. We've been seeing it for years about them issuing shares, and they've got 11 players at a contract, and they seem to can't find the funds to provide them with new contracts or whatever. They're getting money from absolutely nowhere. Think about all the money that they got from the Europa League and Champions League, even though it wasn't as much as what was originally thought. Where did it all go? Went to covering debts.
He's talking at 100 mile an hour to try and speed up his answer.
So I get his part 2 because cool. He's obviously he's seen what's coming in the horizon. He's like, fuck this, I'm off.
Coming. Perfect. Right, see that last bit? That's the length I'm looking for. Right, Mark, do the panel think Ross Wilson leaving is the beginning of a part 2?
No, because the two of them don't under the same question. He left because, first of all, he got a new job. Second of all, because every Rangers fan in the world can't stand him. He's done a bad job in recruitment, and there's no way he's left because he's done a fantastic job. He left because he got a new job. He's not wanted at the club, and he's got a pay rise. The two of them on the part of the same question. I don't think it's a liquidation coming anyway. I think that's just a lot of shite.
Fair enough. Okay, next. Polymorphous. Are Beale's Rangers as far away from Angie's Celtic as Lennon's Celtic was as far away from Gerrard's league-winning Rangers side? Judge, straight to you.
No, because there was a lot of turmoil at Celtic. I think they had the players that could match Rangers back then. We didn't have the referees or a COVID setup that could match Rangers then. But no, I think there's still a good Rangers team there. We just happen to be better and more consistent with a better manager, mate. And it's just a mixture of that. And I think I think Celtic are just too good for them.
Connor.
I think Celtic are just heads above this current Rangers side. I don't think it's as big a gap. Also, the gap during COVID was, down to refereeing and because of the COVID, the rumour is COVID's coming back, so Steven Gerrard will be banging on the gate of Ibrox to let him back in to come manage him again. But I think we're just heads above them. I think the gap's maybe a wee bit closer, if you want to put it that way, but I think that's probably more just into the absolute dross in the league and the fact that it's very much a two-horse race.
Aye, I mean, in my opinion, Polymorphous, I think by the time Lennon left Celtic then, I think the gap was bigger, in my opinion. But there was loads of other mitigating factors that could maybe be the reason for that. But for me, I think the gap was bigger when Lennon's second tenure came to an end than what it is at present. Thanks for the question, though. Right, okay, Connor, I'll bat it back to you. We're just mixing up the order here. Kimchi Strider comes in. If we win our next 3 and thus make the final, would you try a load of mad lineups with youngsters in, or go closer to full strength and aim for world records? It's a good conundrum. I like the question.
I do a mix of both. I would, give other players a chance who are maybe been left in the cold a bit, but obviously I would be aiming. I mean, Angie's the kind of guy who isn't going to let the standards drop on us, even though the league is secured us as lose any games. You think about it, I know it was Trophy Day, but we absolutely gave Motherwell an absolute fucking humping. So didn't he just put, the B team that day just to give them a runabout? But no, there's definitely players I think, given to a start, players like Vata, maybe a couple of weeks for the B team and that, who I think could come in and have a game and see what they're made of. But then again, it's not really against nothing. They're not really testing themselves. The league's one and done anyway. So, I mean, it could be good, but I would like to still go for the records and that, really put a rubber stamp on this season for how good it has been.
Mark, is it give youth a chance and try and get some players embedded into the team for next season? We don't see many youth players getting opportunities under Big Ange, and we know the reasons. Or would you love to see world records being achieved in terms of points, league goals?
I think Ange will want to break records as well, mate. I think Ange's got an ego, but he's also got a point to prove, mate. I think he want to be the man that's broke this record and broke that record. For me, I always want to see Celtic at the very, very top of any record book, you know what I mean? And I said before, we're normally there or thereabouts. I don't think you just give youth a chance. I think there's squad players or players in the first team who have missed out a lot of game time because the guy in front of them has just been too good. They deserve a chance before any youth player does, in my opinion. Otherwise, how can you keep these players happy? But for me, no, you go all out to get the most points, and we've got a good goal here. This is when most of the teams just fall into the summer holidays mindset. We've got goals still ahead of us. Whether we're still going for the treble or no, it doesn't matter. We're still going to have the goal of being the team that scored the most goals and scored and won the most points. And that's, for as a players, that's still a wee carrot at the end of the stick, I think, anyway.
Brilliant. Well, that rounds up the T.N.F tonight. There's been over 180 all night. In fact, we're at 192 just now. So a massive thanks to everyone watching. It's been a very, very busy bus. Do make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, like, share, slag my hair, all that carry on. From Andy Robertson at left back to political, beliefs on what shirt sponsors should be, to talk about the Champions League and all that. So it's better a wee bit of everything tonight and world records at the end. Love it. Anyway, big thanks everyone in the comments. It's been brilliant seeing so much interaction with everyone. That's why we're the most interactive Celtic channel out there. Do make sure you tune in for the shows. We've got Bustalgia tomorrow. We've got some PMP on Sunday. We'll do probably a Saturday session at some point as well. And then it'll be back to the usual stuff next week. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your night. And thanks very much to Mark Kearney and Connor Carr, the Ferrari.
I mean, you've all that stuff at the start. You know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now. And you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.